So we're supposed to talk about the future, and this is a little bit counterintuitive, but I want to go into the past and ask each person sort of to recount sort of what their first encounter with co-working was and what the future of co-working looked like to you sort of at that point. What spoke to you about co-working where you said, this could be a massive part of my life, of my career, of just the world that I live in?
For me, it started with my business partner, who's also my roommate. He moved in, and I loved what he was doing. I told him to hire me. That was my advice, actually. And it worked. And the thing that impacted me the most was being able to help people and influence people in a positive way and have them influence me and really learn a lot. I think there's value from symbiotic partnerships, and that's what I really believe co-working pushes with both competitors and partners in spaces, is this symbiotic relationship that you aren't able to have if you're siloed in one place. So that's what's really impactful for co-working about me in this future.
I think I was definitely looking at all the different solutions that are out there to try to make our lives more, make our lives better and more connected, and we're all going to live in this beautiful, Coke society, where we're all handing each other a Coke and we're all happy, and it just didn't make sense to me. And then I'm looking at people working in coffee shops where they're around bodies and all these things, and just like there's just something missing. Like you're around all these people, but nobody knows who anybody is. And then I just had this idea in my mind of a coffee shop that kind of fixed that problem. And then I started looking around and I saw co-working. I was like, no, that's what I'm looking for. That's it. And that's been a huge element that I think is missing in a lot of when people think about how to market their space, it gets really tricky because they start, they aren't really tapping into that one core need, which is specifically what people are looking for.
Yeah, we first sort of ran into co-working in 2006. We were trying to understand why the whole shift to independent workers, freelancers, actually wasn't happening as quickly as we thought it was. That's something that was described in the 80s, again in the 90s, Free Agent Nation. And so we were trying to understand that, and we heard about a place called Hat Factory, and in San Francisco, which was one of the early co-working facilities. So we wandered down and took a look, and sort of from that said, okay, we now, one of the missing pieces in independent work and freelance work is sort of not only just a workplace, but a style and approach and a collaborative way to do it. And we saw that in action at the Hat Factory, and that's when we started sort of following co-working in general. And our view of the future is that it is one of the real enablers of this structural shift towards independent work.
My experience was I hosted for 5 years a salon about innovations that help people share, and in San Francisco. And the issue was, as someone that wanted to bring people together, I couldn't find places. It was always a struggle to find a place, an affordable place to bring people together, where they wouldn't have to pay like $20 to have a conversation, And so the cool thing was, like, I could go down to Citizen Space, and it was like 60. I could talk to Jessie, who was really cool, and she'd set everything up and put us on the schedule and promote it, or to Parasoma, and it's like that is so valuable to open a space for people to come in to have events. This is where the future comes from, is where people who don't, who need a place to have a conversation about the future, about something that they want to do or create. So, that's the really cool thing that, from my perspective of co-working, giving groups that voice, that chance to have that conversation.
I think, I don't know the exact moment. I didn't write it down. But I've spent a lot of time in my career and working and being really frustrated by barriers, all kinds of barriers. And I remember I worked in these cubes for the government, and it was very frowned upon to have a guest chair in your cube. And so we had like 12 cubes upstairs where we worked, and I think there were like 3 illicit guest chairs. And it was like this big game to get to work early so you could steal a guest chair, and then you would have the ability for somebody to come into your cube and sit with you and talk to you during the day. And so this was a barrier I was trying to overcome. And then I switched companies to the private industry thinking that was the solution, and they put me in this weird office again with this freaking shield in front of my desk, and I was HR, and I was so confused by it that this maintenance man came by, and I'm like, will you take this thing away? So I took it away, and then people started coming up to talk to me, and then pretty soon I started going into the marketing department through a couple of doors, and I was like, what's with the fucking doors everywhere, and the walls and the barriers and whatever. And then I left that job, and then I started working at an innovation incubator center, and they all had doors and walls, and they were all segregated, and I got really frustrated again. And so I asked him if I could just have freelancers come to my reception desk where I was volunteering and sit with me and work. And they did that, and so I finally felt calm inside and thinking like, oh my God, like I can touch this person sitting next to me, and they want to sit next to me, and I don't have to look for an extra chair, like it just happens. And so that's when I knew that co-working was right, because there are no barriers.
That's